In the vast deserts of South Australia lies a cave system so remote, so deep, that few divers dare to enter it. Pannikin Plains Cave, hidden beneath the Nullarbor Plain, was a place of extremes. Miles from the nearest town, its passages stretched into pitch-black tunnels where a single mistake meant death. In 1988, a team of elite cave divers set out to push its limits, driven by discovery and ambition. But the deeper they went, the thinner the line between triumph and tragedy became. One diver would never return, and the cave would add another name to its silent ledger of the lost. The Nullarbor Plain is one of the most desolate landscapes on Earth, an endless stretch of limestone desert where the horizon seems to run forever. Beneath this barren surface, however, lies a hidden world of vast flooded caves, some of the largest known on the planet. Among them is Pannikin Plains Cave, a remote and rarely visited site that plunges hundreds of meters into darkness. The cave's entrance is unassuming, a simple depression in the desert floor, yet beneath it unfolds a cathedral of stone and water, where tunnels stretch so far that even the strongest lights cannot reach their end. Visibility can be dazzling, with crystal water stretching for hundreds of meters, but the environment is unforgiving. It is an overhead world with no quick escape. By the late 1980s, Pannikin Plains had gained a reputation as the ultimate challenge for Australia's top cave explorers. It was here that a daring expedition would end in disaster. In September 1988, a team of highly experienced cave divers assembled at the remote entrance of Pannikin Plains Cave. Among them were Australia's most respected names in deep cave exploration, men who had logged countless hours in the submerged systems of Mount Gambier and the Nullarbor. Their mission was ambitious: to push the known limits of the cave, mapping deeper sections that no diver had yet reached. The logistics were immense. Tanks were trucked across rough desert roads, each filled to capacity with compressed air and mixed gases. Reels of line were prepared, lights checked and rechecked, and dive plans laid out with military precision. Even so, every diver understood the stakes. Pannikin Plains was far from any rescue service. In case of an accident, survival would come down to the team alone. The dive began smoothly. Descending through the narrow entrance, they entered a vast chamber where the water was astonishingly clear. Their lights revealed walls stretching away into the darkness, pillars of limestone carved by millions of years of slow erosion. The divers moved methodically, laying guideline as they advanced, carefully preserving their route back to the surface. As the hours passed, they pressed deeper, pushing into sections of the cave where no human had ever swum before. The silence was absolute, broken only by the hiss of regulators and the clink of metal clips against their harnesses. The thrill of discovery mixed with a growing unease, the realization that every meter forward meant a longer, more dangerous journey home. By the time the team reached their planned turnaround point, the dive had already become one of the most demanding ever attempted on the Nullarbor. The descent was complete, but the true test, the return through cold, dark kilometers of flooded stone, was about to begin. The team began their long ascent, following the thin guideline through the endless black corridors of Pannikin Plains. At first, progress was steady, each diver conserving air and moving with discipline. But as they reached one of the deeper restrictions, things began to unravel. Visibility, once perfect, grew hazy as fine silt drifted into the water. A misplaced fin kick stirred clouds that clung like smoke, narrowing the beams of their lights. The guideline became their only lifeline, a thin thread leading back toward the surface. Every movement forward was a test of nerves. Somewhere in the confusion, one diver fell behind. He struggled with fatigue, his breathing accelerating as the pressure of the long return weighed on him. Air reserves dwindled faster than expected. The others pressed on, assuming he was close. But in the murk of the restriction, separation was final. Alone in the black water, the diver's torch beam wavered, then dimmed. His breath turned frantic, regulator hissing in short bursts. He clawed at the rock, searching for the line, but it was gone. When his tank reached empty, silence replaced the hiss. His body drifted into the chamber, motionless in the still water. The surviving team members surfaced hours later, exhausted but alive. Relief turned quickly to dread. When they counted heads, one of their own had not come back. Pannikin Plains had claimed a life. News of the tragedy at Pannikin Plains Cave spread quickly through the tight-knit diving community. For many, the incident was a sobering reminder of how thin the line between mastery and mortality could be in the subterranean world. The loss struck especially hard because the diver was no novice. He had been among Australia's most capable. If such a skilled explorer could perish, what chance did the unprepared have? Authorities briefly considered restricting access to the site altogether, but instead, the diving community responded with reforms. More rigorous training was emphasized, redundant equipment became standard, and safety guidelines were reinforced with new urgency. The tragedy was studied in detail, its lessons folded into every future briefing for divers daring to enter the Nullabor's hidden caves. Today, Pannikin Plains is remembered not only as a place of breathtaking discovery, but also as a reminder of the unforgiving nature of cave diving. Beneath the surface of Juden Cave, called China's underwater Mount Everest, lies a darkness no light has fully conquered. On a fateful evening, Han Ting, Asia's deepest cave diver and instructor to celebrities, plunged into its chasm. He vanished beyond reach. His record-shattering depth of 277 meters, a mere 9 from the world record, suggested mastery. Yet here in the silent abyss, expertise slipped from control. Now, the cave has consumed its greatest explorer. His name is spoken in tense whispers among divers, a reminder that even legends can vanish when the water swallows them whole. Juden Cave lies hidden in China's Guangxi region, a place where jagged karst mountains conceal a labyrinth of underground rivers. For locals, the cave system is just another feature of the landscape, but for divers, it is something else entirely. A vertical world of flooded chambers, unpredictable currents, and depths so extreme that even elite explorers hesitate. Unlike Florida's springs or Mexico's cenotes, Juden is not tourist-friendly. Its water is dark, cold, and often clouded. Narrow restrictions funnel into immense shafts, dropping away like elevators into the earth. Mapping its passages demands more than courage. It requires discipline, precision, and equipment tuned for survival at crushing depths. Han Ting was drawn to this cave not just for its danger, but for what it represented: uncharted territory. To him, Juden was the frontier, the place where exploration blurred into obsession and where legends were made or lost. On October 7, 2022, Han Ting prepared for what would be his boldest expedition into Juden Cave. By then, he was already a legend, China's foremost technical diver, a record holder who had reached depths few others dared attempt. He was also a teacher, known for training actors and stunt professionals in underwater work. But here, in the depths of Guangxi, no reputation could protect him. His goal was ambitious: a new exploration dive into the unexplored shafts of Juden. Han had trained relentlessly, fine-tuning his breathing techniques and redundant gear. With each dive, he had pushed the limits further, chasing a depth that few humans on Earth had reached. On this day, he descended alone, carrying multiple stage tanks, specialized lights, and reels of line to mark his path. At first, the dive unfolded smoothly. Han's body moved with practiced calm, his light tracing over the limestone walls as he dropped deeper into the shaft. At 100 meters, his breathing slowed into steady rhythm. At 200 meters, the cave pressed tighter, its water colder, darker. Han had gone beyond the reach of nearly all other divers. Somewhere near his deepest push, around 277 meters, things began to unravel. Communication with the surface team faltered. His line stretched into the black, but Han's progress slowed, then ceased. Divers monitoring his descent waited for the signal of his ascent, the reassuring bubbles rising from the shaft. None came. As the minutes stretched into hours, the realization struck. The cave had swallowed him. Han Ting, China's deepest diver, had vanished into Judun's abyss. At the surface, Han Ting's support team scanned the water anxiously. Minutes bled into hours, and still no bubbles rose from the shaft. In deep cave diving, timing is everything. Decompression stops, gas switches, and planned ascents must occur with precision. Any delay beyond the schedule signals catastrophe. The team waited for Han's return, eyes locked on the dark pool that had swallowed him. Safety divers stood ready, but could only descend so far. Judun's depth was beyond the range of all but a handful of specialists. Sending rescuers blindly into such conditions risked more lives. Reports later confirmed that Han had reached a depth of 277 meters, only 9 meters shy of the world record. But in pushing that extreme, something had gone wrong. Perhaps equipment, perhaps physiology, or perhaps simply the merciless pressure of the cave itself. What is certain is that Han never resurfaced. Rescue efforts were launched, but recovery in such a hostile environment was impossible. Divers struggled to penetrate beyond 100 meters, their lights vanishing into the shaft where Han had disappeared. The cave refused to give him back. Days of searching yielded nothing. Word of his disappearance rippled quickly through China's diving community. To many, Han was a mentor and pioneer, the man who proved that Chinese divers could match and even surpass the best in the world. To lose him in Judun Cave was unthinkable. Yet that was the reality. A man who had conquered depth after depth had finally been consumed by it. In the end, there were no final words, no witness to his last breath. Only the silent dark of Judun Cave knows how Han Ting's final moments unfolded. The loss of Han Ting shook China's diving community to its core. He had been more than a record breaker. He was a symbol of possibility, a man who carried the nation's flag into the world's deepest waters. His disappearance inside Judun Cave was not just personal tragedy, but national shock. Tributes poured in. Students remembered his patience as an instructor, his calm voice guiding them through difficult drills. Fellow explorers spoke of his courage, his relentless drive to push limits responsibly yet boldly. News outlets called him China's deepest diver, a pioneer who had expanded the boundaries of what was thought possible. Yet Judun Cave remained silent. No recovery was made, and Han Ting's body never returned. The cave became his resting place, a reminder carved in darkness that even the strongest cannot always master nature. Today, divers speak his name with reverence. Darkness closed in before anyone could react. What began as an ordinary training day off the Homosassa shore turned into a fight for air and orientation inside a narrow cave crack. James Francis Cummins, known locally as Jim Cummins, led two men, Harold Arnold and Donald Albritton, into a passage off the Gulf floor in early October 2007. A sudden silt-out erased their lights, and when Jim failed to surface, the search that followed pulled a community into grief. How did a routine training dive end with one man lost beneath the rock? Jim Cummins was well known in Crystal River, Florida. At 40 years old, he owned a dive shop and had built a reputation as a patient instructor for beginners and advanced open water students. But despite his hours underwater, there was a critical gap in his resume. He was not certified in cave diving. That distinction would prove crucial at Buzz Cave. On October 1st, 2007, Cummins led two of his students, Harold Arnold and Donald Albritton, into the waters of Homosassa. The plan was part of their advanced open water training. All three carried standard recreational scuba gear, single tanks, basic lights, and no reels to mark their path. None of them held cave diving certification. The entrance to Buzz Cave was little more than a crack in the limestone seabed. It looked manageable, almost inviting. The trio slipped below, following Cummins' lead as he guided them into the passage. At first, conditions appeared stable. Light beams cut cleanly through the water, and confidence grew. But as the group pressed deeper, the walls narrowed and the water shifted. What began as routine training was drifting toward risk. At first, the dive unfolded with a calm rhythm. Jim Cummins moved confidently into the opening, Harold Arnold and Donald Albritton following just a few feet behind. Their lights cut across the limestone walls, illuminating rough textures and shadows. The water was clear enough to make the narrow passage feel manageable, almost routine. But Buzz Cave wasn't built for open water divers. Every fin stroke disturbed the fine silt along the bottom. At first, it rose only in thin wisps, but as the group pushed deeper, the particles thickened, clouding the water. Visibility began to shrink. Then the silt-out came. A careless kick sent a dark cloud spiraling upward, swallowing their beams of light. In seconds, the clear passage turned into a choking black void. The three divers lost sight of one another. Arnold and Albritton struggled to stay close, but panic built as the blackness pressed in. Cummins tried to signal and lead them back, but without a reel or reference line, the direction of escape became guesswork. The students relied on instinct. Their instructor relied on experience. Yet in Buzz Cave, neither would be enough to restore control. Inside the cave, panic began to spread as the blackness refused to lift. The silt hung suspended, so dense that even the closest dive lights were useless. Harold Arnold and Donald Albritton could hear only the rasp of their own breathing, each inhale faster than the last. Their air supplies, designed for open water training, were being drained by fear. Jim Cummins tried to regain command. He signaled frantically, attempting to direct his students toward the way out. But orientation inside a cave without a line is treacherous. What felt like the exit might just as easily lead deeper into the system. In the haze, Arnold and Albritton drifted apart from him, driven by the instinct to escape. Both students eventually clawed their way back into clearer water and then up to the surface, rattled but alive. When they looked around, their instructor was gone. Alone in the passage, Cummins fought against dwindling air and disorientation. His regulator hissed in shorter bursts until silence came. Later reports suggested that his tank had even become wedged against rock, trapping him as his final breaths slipped away. The cave had claimed him in darkness and stillness. When Harold Arnold and Donald Albritton surfaced without their instructor, panic set in on shore. Authorities were alerted. and specialized recovery divers prepared to enter Buzz Cave. The assignment was grim. Locate and retrieve the missing body of Jim Cummins. The team descended with caution, laying fresh guideline through the same silted passages that had blinded the trio. Progress was agonizingly slow. Each movement threatened to stir the sediment again, erasing visibility. The divers knew that the cave had already taken one life. A second mistake could easily add another. Deep inside, they found him. Cummins was still in full gear, regulator in place, his tanks empty. Reports noted that his equipment had become wedged against rock, holding him fast in the narrowing passage. The positioning suggested a desperate struggle to turn back before his air supply was exhausted. The recovery itself was painstaking. Navigating his body through the restrictions required both technical precision and emotional resilience. Hours later, when they finally surfaced, the waiting community received confirmation of what many had feared. Jim Cummins would not be coming back. News of Jim Cummins' death spread quickly across Florida's dive community. He was not a novice. At 40 years old, he ran a successful dive shop and had guided countless students in open water. That made the loss even harder to comprehend. If someone so experienced in teaching could be claimed by a cave, what did that mean for others tempted by the same risks? For Harold Arnold and Donald Albritton, the tragedy was personal. They had entered the water with their instructor for what should have been another step towards certification. Instead, they surfaced alone, carrying the memory of confusion, terror, and the moment they realized Cummins had not followed them out. Their survival was tied to chance more than training, a truth that haunted them long after. Authorities emphasized what the cave community already knew. Buzz Cave was not a place for recreational training. It demanded redundant air, strict guidelines, and specialized certification. Cummins had entered with confidence, but without the equipment or training required for overhead environments, confidence became a liability. Among cave divers, his story endures as a sobering lesson. Beautiful entrances can hide deadly traps. Familiar skills in open water do not translate underground. The silence inside a cave allows no margin for error. For Jim Cummins, the price of that oversight was ultimate. A life surrendered to darkness, and a warning carved into the memory of all who dive Florida's limestone veins.